The stillness of the night lay heavy over the isolated farmhouse, the only sound a soft rustling of leaves in the cool breeze. Luna, the sleek German shepherd, lay curled by the porch steps, her breathing steady, until a faint, almost imperceptible noise pulled her senses taut. Her ears twitched sharply, pivoting toward the shadowed tree line beyond the yard. A low growl began deep in her throat, barely audible but charged with an urgent warning. The quiet air seemed to constrict, as if the darkness itself was waiting. Luna's eyes locked onto a barely visible movement, a silhouette darting between the ancient oaks. Every muscle in her body tightened, ready to spring into action. This was no ordinary disturbance. It was something she felt deep in her instinct, a warning rooted in a past she never forgot. With deliberate steps, Luna rose and began pacing along the edge of the property, her gaze fixed on the old wooden shed at the far corner. The structure stood silent, its weather-beaten door firmly locked, but to Luna, it emanated a presence, something unseen but palpably wrong. She approached the shed cautiously, nose twitching, tail low but tense, letting out soft whines and quiet barks that echoed into the night. Her reluctance to come inside was clear. Every instinct screamed at her to stay out here, to guard the mystery that hid beneath the shed's peeling paint and rusted hinges. Emma, watching from the dim glow of the porch light, noticed Luna's unease but was too exhausted from the day's grief to fully grasp the urgency in her companion's actions. Emma leaned heavily on the wooden railing, her eyes heavy with fatigue and sorrow. The weight of loneliness pressed down on her, a constant companion since the loss of her husband. Her gaze flickered between Luna and the dark silhouette of the shed, uncertainty twisting in her chest. The wind tugged at her loose strands of hair, and the porch light flickered unevenly, casting wavering shadows on her tired face. She wanted to dismiss Luna's behavior, tell herself it was just the dog's newness to the house, or old age creeping into her mind. But a small, persistent knot of dread gnawed at her, whispering that Luna's instinct was far sharper than she dared admit. Her fingers tightened around the railing, the cold metal grounding her as she wrestled with the decision whether to follow Luna's silent alarm or retreat into the safety of her grief. A sudden flicker cut through the warm glow of the porch light, plunging the veranda into brief darkness before sputtering back to life. The shadows it cast moved like ghostly dancers across the weathered wood, distorting familiar shapes into sinister forms. Somewhere in the distance, an owl's mournful call pierced the silence, and the wind whispered through the bare branches, carrying the scent of damp earth and fallen leaves. The atmosphere thickened, the night alive with unseen eyes watching and waiting. The house, though a shelter, felt fragile under this quiet siege of nature and mystery. Emma shivered, not just from the chill, but from an unnamed fear that tightened its grip as the unseen threads of the night wove closer around her. Luna's gaze never wavered from the shed. Her dark eyes, usually calm and intelligent, now shimmered with primal fear. They glistened under the moonlight, wide and alert, as if she saw something far beyond the peeling wood and rusty hinges, something that no human eye could discern. Her body remained rigid, tail twitching nervously, ears pinned back in cautious submission to the unknown threat. A soft whimper escaped her throat, a sound that tugged at Emma's heart and stirred something ancient and protective deep within. It was a silent plea, not just for attention but for trust, for belief in the warning Luna bore in her instincts. Emma's mind churned in conflicted waves. The exhaustion that draped over her like a heavy cloak begged for rest, for turning away from the shadows lurking in the corners of her new life. But the look in Luna's eyes anchored her, grounding her trembling heart. She remembered promises whispered in quieter days, to protect, to fight, to not let fear define her family's future. Still, the temptation to retreat, to bury herself in memories and tears, pulled relentlessly. The porch felt both a refuge and a cage, the boundary between safety and the unknown. With a shaky breath, she straightened, the resolve beginning to harden beneath the layers of grief. Tonight, she would choose to face the darkness. A sudden gust tore through the trees, sending a cascade of brittle leaves tumbling across the yard like restless spirits. The noise cracked the thick silence like a whip, causing Luna's fur to bristle and her body to stiffen. Emma's breath caught, the cold wind slipping beneath her jacket, as if the night itself was whispering warnings in a language only the brave dared to hear. The air grew thick with anticipation, charged with the electric hum of an unseen storm. Time seemed to stretch, every sound amplified, the distant bark of a dog, the creak of a gate swaying in the breeze. It was a moment suspended between worlds, where fear and courage waged a silent battle beneath the moon's pale gaze. Suddenly, Luna's growl erupted into a series of sharp, insistent barks, cutting through the night like an alarm bell. Her voice was urgent, raw with warning, shaking the stillness that had blanketed the town. Windows flicked on as neighbors stirred awake, eyes darting toward the source of the disturbance. Emma's heart pounded as Luna circled the shed, her barks slicing the darkness and calling attention to the unseen threat. It was as if Luna was breaking a long-held silence, demanding recognition of the danger lurking in the shadows. The dog's fierce loyalty transformed into a beacon of hope, a guardian sound that both warned and united. In the midst of the chaos, Emma's mind drifted to a tender memory, a sunlit afternoon with her husband and Jacob, laughter echoing through a field of wildflowers. The warmth of those days wrapped around her like a fragile shield, a stark contrast to the cold fear pressing in now. She remembered his steady hand on hers, his quiet strength in the face of hardship. The memory was bittersweet, a reminder of what was lost and what still needed protection. It fueled a fierce determination, pushing back against the darkness gathering around her family and home. The past, though shadowed by grief, became a source of courage. As Emma's gaze wandered, a faint, almost imperceptible creak echoed from the shed's door, a sound swallowed quickly by the night but not by Luna. Her entire body tensed instantly, ears flattened, tail stiff, low growls rumbling deep in her chest. She shifted into a protective stance between the shed and Emma, eyes burning with fierce vigilance. The door, a simple piece of weathered wood, suddenly held the weight of 1,000 secrets. Emma's attention snapped back just in time to catch the tail end of a shadow disappearing beyond the corner. The unseen threat had made its move. A shiver traced Emma's spine as she stepped off the porch, the gravel crunching softly beneath her boots. The cold night air wrapped around her like a silent shroud, each breath crystallizing into mist. Her eyes never left Luna's poised figure, the dog's unwavering focus a silent command to follow. Each step felt heavier, loaded with the weight of uncertainty and fear. Doubt gnawed at her. Was this courage or folly? The house behind her grew distant as she crossed the threshold into the unknown, every sense alert. Tonight, the boundary between safety and danger blurred, and Emma walked it with trembling resolve. In the dim glow of the porch light, Luna's massive paw extended forward, gently resting on Emma's trembling hand. The gesture was quiet but powerful, a wordless promise of protection, companionship, and unwavering loyalty. Emma looked down into the depths of Luna's eyes, seeing not just a dog but a guardian, a partner in a battle she was only beginning to understand. The moment crystallized into a vow: no matter what shadows lay ahead, they would face them together. Trust was their weapon, silence their bond. And in that simple touch, a new chapter began. The low hum of the highway faded as Emma turned off onto the narrow country road that led to her new home. The late afternoon sun spilled golden light over rolling fields, painting the sky with streaks of amber and lavender. She exhaled slowly, the air thick with the scent of wildflowers and earth. Her hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel, the weight of grief heavy but somehow lighter here, away from the city's noise and memories. This town was small, with a few weathered houses and a sense of quiet that felt both foreign and welcoming. Her husband's absence pressed at her chest like an old wound, but the promise of peace whispered from the trees surrounding her new farmhouse. Jacob, her son, sat quietly in the back seat, clutching a faded stuffed bear. Emma's eyes flickered to the rearview mirror. He was the reason she had to find strength again. Here, in this place stitched together by time and nature, she hoped to rebuild a life shattered by loss. Before Luna arrived at Emma's doorstep, she had known only neglect and hardship. Found wandering near a rundown shelter miles away, her coat matted and eyes wary, she had survived on sheer instinct. Shelter workers whispered stories of her fierce independence, how she snapped at anyone who tried to approach but remained fiercely protective of those few she trusted. Luna's past was a patchwork of shadows, possibly a former working dog discarded when she no longer served a purpose. Yet beneath the layers of fear and mistrust was a heart fiercely loyal, a silent sentinel yearning for connection. When Emma met her, Luna's cautious gaze lingered long and deep, sensing a kindred soul marred by pain but willing to heal. Their meeting was fragile but profound, a silent exchange of trust slowly stitched together by time and patience. Luna's scars told stories Emma understood all too well, binding them in an unspoken pact of resilience and protection. The farmhouse stood sentinel against the sweeping horizon, its wooden beams worn by decades of wind and rain. Paint peeled from the clapboard siding, revealing the bare wood beneath like sun-bleached bones. The porch sagged slightly under the weight of time, its floorboards creaking softly with every cautious step. Around the house, wild grasses and weeds grew unchecked, mingling with clusters of stubborn daisies and tangled vines that clawed at the fence posts. The air was thick with the scent of pine needles and damp earth, punctuated by the faint hum of cicadas hidden in the nearby woods. Inside, the floors whispered stories with every footfall, memories of laughter and loss embedded in the cracked plaster and faded wallpaper. Despite the wear, the house held a quiet dignity, a sanctuary waiting to be reclaimed. The old shed loomed at the far edge of the yard, its locked door a silent enigma. Weathered and darkened by years of neglect, it stood apart from the house as if guarding secrets best left undisturbed. At the edge of the property, the shed waited in patient silence. Its wood was cracked and splintered, blackened by weather and neglect. Rust ate away at the hinges, and the lock glinted coldly under the slanting sun, unopened, untouched for years. Locals often averted their eyes when passing, their voices dropping to hushed whispers about the tragedies that had unfolded nearby. Stories of vanished neighbors, late-night screams carried on the wind, and shadows that moved just beyond sight clung to the shed like thick ivy. To Emma, it was both an eyesore and a mystery she dared not unravel, at least not yet. The shed's presence was a dark weight hanging over the farm, a reminder that some histories refused to stay buried. Even Luna, usually fearless, kept her distance, her growls low and cautious whenever they neared. Emma hadn't expected to find Luna waiting on her porch one rainy evening, a large, silent figure drenched in stormwater, eyes shining with a mixture of fear and hope. Their first meeting was tentative, the kind of cautious dance two wounded souls perform when neither fully trusts the other. Emma reached out slowly, offering scraps from her dinner plate, her voice soft and steady against the backdrop of thunder. Luna's gaze flickered between the food and Emma's face, her body tense but unwilling to turn away. The hours passed with slow, careful gestures, a gentle scratch behind the ears, a tentative nudge, a soft whine breaking the quiet. In those fragile moments, a bond began to form, not with words, but through shared vulnerability and quiet presence. Emma saw in Luna a mirror of her own loneliness, and Luna sensed a protector who would never abandon her. It was the beginning of a silent pact that would soon be tested by the darkness lurking nearby. Jacob was the sunbeam cutting through the shadows of Emma's life, a lively, curious boy with wide eyes that mirrored his mother's guarded hope. Despite the weight of loss around them, he carried a resilience that softened the farmhouse's edges. His laughter filled the rooms with a fragile light, chasing away some of the silence that otherwise clung like a shroud. Jacob's innocence was a balm to Emma's weary heart, but also a source of fierce protectiveness. He was drawn to Luna with the easy trust only a child could give, delighting in the dog's quiet companionship and steadfast presence. Together, they formed an unspoken triangle of healing: mother, son, and dog, each learning to navigate grief and fear in their own way. Jacob's simple joys contrasted with the heavy atmosphere of the farmhouse, reminding Emma daily why she had to find strength amid uncertainty. Though the town streets were quiet, the undercurrents of gossip ran deep. Emma noticed the sideways glances from neighbors as she walked Jacob to school, their eyes narrowing at Luna, or at the old farmhouse she now called home. Conversations hushed when she approached, voices dipping into murmurs about the tragedy that had befallen the family before her arrival. Skeptical whispers spoke of old grudges and unexplained disappearances tied to the property's past. Some neighbors viewed Luna with suspicion, a stray dog drawn from a shadowy shelter, they said, not fit for the peaceful community. Emma felt the weight of isolation settle around her like a cloak, a subtle but persistent reminder that trust here was fragile and acceptance hard-won. Yet beneath the skepticism, there were curious eyes, those wondering whether Luna's mysterious presence might stir secrets better left buried. One chilly afternoon, Emma found herself face to face with Mrs. Harlan, an elderly woman whose sharp gaze had followed her since day one. Their conversation was cautious, words measured like chess moves. Mrs. Harlan spoke of the farmhouse's past in cryptic tones: a family torn apart, a child lost, a silence that settled like dust over the land. Some secrets, she said softly, aren't meant for strangers to dig up. Emma's heart quickened, the protective walls she had built trembling. There was a warning beneath the words, a plea wrapped in suspicion. As Mrs. Harlan turned away, her eyes flickered with something unreadable, a mixture of fear and sorrow. Emma realized that the town's past was tangled with the present, and that uncovering the truth might come at a cost. Luna, standing silently by her side, seemed to sense the shift, her ears pricking at the tension hanging between the two women. In the quiet moments between the storms, Luna became Jacob's steadfast shadow. She followed him from room to room, lying patiently at his feet during homework, resting her head gently on his lap as he drifted to sleep. Her watchful eyes missed nothing: whispers in the night, footsteps on the gravel, shadows flickering just beyond the window. Though she said nothing, her presence spoke volumes, a silent vow to guard the boy with fierce devotion. When Jacob wandered too close to the shed one afternoon, Luna's posture shifted. Her body stiffened, low growls vibrating in her throat, warning clear and immediate. Jacob looked up at Luna with wide eyes, understanding dawning that she was his protector, his silent guardian against dangers he could not yet name. For Emma, this quiet connection was a balm, a fragile thread weaving hope into their fractured lives. Each morning, Emma woke to the pale light filtering through threadbare curtains, her heart a battleground of hope and sorrow. The farmhouse promised a new beginning, a chance to heal wounds that city streets could not soothe. Yet the shadows of the past clung stubbornly, memories of loss, the echo of laughter now silenced, and the weight of unanswered questions. Luna's restless nights and Jacob's wide-eyed fears whispered that peace was fragile, perhaps even illusory. Emma struggled to balance the fierce urge to protect her son with the need to confront the darkness lurking beneath their new life. Her reflections were interrupted by the soft padding of Luna's paws, a reminder that she was not alone in this journey. Together, they stood on the edge of uncertainty, fragile but unbroken. The night air carried sounds both familiar and unsettling. A lone dog howled somewhere deep in the woods, a mournful call that echoed through the hollow spaces between the trees. Leaves rustled like whispered secrets, skittering across the yard as if chased by unseen feet. Occasionally, an unexplained creak or thud rippled through the silence, sharp and sudden, drawing Luna's gaze to the shadows beyond. Emma felt the hairs rise on the back of her neck, a primal alertness she couldn't ignore. The house, though solid, felt vulnerable beneath the weight of these murmurs. Each sound was a puzzle piece hinting at stories buried in the soil, stories that Luna seemed determined to unravel. The night was alive, a living thing watching, waiting. In the stillness of the late night, Emma sat by the window, wrapped in a worn blanket, eyes tracing the shadowed outline of the shed silhouetted against the moonlit sky. The silence was heavy, filled with memories both cherished and painful. She thought of her husband, the way his laugh had filled these very rooms, the warmth that now felt like a distant dream. Grief pressed close, a constant companion she couldn't shake. But beyond sorrow was something else, an uneasy awareness of secrets lurking just beyond reach, tied inexplicably to the old shed and the silent dog guarding it. Her fingers traced the cold glass as she made a silent promise to face whatever lay ahead, for Jacob, for Luna, for herself. The night whispered possibilities, and though fear trembled in her heart, a flicker of courage began to kindle. The first rays of morning sunlight filtered softly through the kitchen window, casting warm pools of gold on the worn wooden floor. Emma moved quietly around the room, the familiar rhythm of brewing coffee and sizzling bacon comforting in its ordinariness. Luna sat near the hearth, her sleek coat catching the light, eyes fixed patiently on Jacob, who fumbled eagerly with his cereal bowl. The dog's ears twitched at every creak and murmur, alert yet calm, ever watchful, the silent guardian in this new chapter of their lives. The scent of fresh bread mingled with the earthy aroma drifting in from the open window, where a gentle breeze rustled the curtains. For a moment, the weight of grief felt distant, replaced by the simple, tender warmth of this shared morning. Emma glanced at Luna and Jacob, a soft smile breaking through the tired lines on her face. Here was a fragile piece, woven with quiet hope. Jacob's laughter bubbled unexpectedly, filling the small kitchen with a lightness that felt both fragile and fierce. His small hand reached out to ruffle Luna's ears, who leaned into the affection with a gentle thump of her tail. Emma paused, spoon halfway to her mouth, the sound a bittersweet melody that cracked through the silence she'd carried for so long. The boy's bright eyes sparkled as he retold a clumsy joke from school, and Luna's soft panting punctuated the moment like a comforting heartbeat. For all the shadows in their past, this burst of joy felt like a balm, proof that healing, however slow, was possible. Emma felt her throat tighten, a mix of gratitude and aching sorrow swirling inside her, but for now, the present held firm, wrapped in the warmth of family and trust. Throughout the morning, Luna's posture shifted subtly but purposefully. As Emma bustled around the kitchen, Luna moved with quiet grace, positioning herself strategically, just out of Emma's peripheral vision but ever between her and the front door. Her eyes flickered towards every creak and knock, tail low but alert, ears pinned forward with a soft, almost inaudible growl when a distant car door slammed. The dog's movements were a silent choreography of protection and vigilance, a language without words that Emma was only beginning to understand. When Jacob darted towards the door to chase after a fluttering leaf, Luna's stance stiffened, a low rumble rolling from deep in her chest, her gaze sharp and unwavering. Emma caught the exchange, feeling a prickling awareness settle on her skin. Luna's instincts were alive, tuned to the invisible threats that still haunted this place. Later that afternoon, Emma sat on the weathered porch steps with Luna curled at her feet, the dog's thick coat catching the fading sunlight in waves of amber and black. With gentle strokes, Emma ran her fingers through the fur, each pass loosening knots and whispering comfort. Luna's eyes half closed, a rare softness shining in their depths as she leaned into the touch. The quiet between them was heavy with unspoken words, shared pain and a growing bond forged in silence. Emma's mind wandered to the nights when Luna refused to enter the house, pacing restlessly by the shed's shadow, and how now, in these moments, trust was taking root. The dog's steady breathing against the rhythm of the distant crickets wove a soothing melody, grounding Emma in the fragile sanctuary of the present. It was a simple act, but in it lay a profound healing, two souls learning to lean on one another amid the fractures of the past. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of pink and gray, Luna's body tensed sharply. Her ears flicked forward, nose twitching in the cool evening air. Standing rigid by the backyard fence, She fixed her gaze on a dark mass just beyond the overgrown brush. The wind carried whispers of movement, branches cracking, leaves rustling, yet the source remained elusive. Luna's tail lowered, fur bristling faintly along her spine, as a low growl hummed in her throat, steady and cautious. Emma, sitting nearby on the porch swing, felt the shift instantly, an electric charge prickling her skin. "What is it, girl?" she murmured, voice barely above a whisper, but Luna gave no answer, only unwavering vigilance. The shadow seemed to flicker and vanish, but Luna's silent alarm persisted, a warning unspoken yet deeply understood. Emma's heart quickened. The calm veneer of their evening was cracking. The next morning brought a fleeting calm. Jacob's laughter rang clear as he threw a worn tennis ball across the yard, and Luna bounded after it with joyful abandon. Yet beneath the playful surface, Luna's eyes darted repeatedly toward the distant silhouette of the shed. Each time a shadow crossed the weathered door or a breeze whispered through the broken boards, her pace faltered, muscles coiled in silent tension. Jacob remained oblivious, engrossed in the simple game, his small hands clapping with delight each time Luna returned the ball. Emma watched from the porch, a knot tightening in her stomach. Luna's divided attention was a troubling signal, an unvoiced alert to dangers unseen. The yard's serenity was fragile, threaded with quiet warnings that Emma struggled to acknowledge. Emma sat on the porch steps, the soft morning light filtering through the leaves overhead. Luna lay at her side, muscles taut, ears flicking toward every creak and distant sound. Emma's fingers brushed through the dog's fur, trying to soothe the restless energy pulsing beneath. She told herself it was just the lingering trauma of Luna's past, the abandonment, the shelter life, the unfamiliarity of their new home. The town was quiet, the neighbors friendly enough, and there was no concrete reason for alarm. "You're just anxious, girl," Emma whispered, pressing her cheek against Luna's head. Yet the dog's gaze remained fixed beyond the fence, sharp and unyielding. Doubt gnawed at Emma's resolve. Part of her yearned to trust Luna's instincts, but fear of what they might uncover kept her tethered to denial. She exhaled slowly, steeling herself for whatever lay beneath the surface. Darkness had settled over the farmhouse, thick and heavy, muffling the sounds of the world outside. Emma lay in bed, her breath shallow, the weight of restless thoughts pressing down. Luna curled tightly at her feet, the dog's warmth a small island of comfort amid the shadows. Suddenly, a soft whimper broke the silence, a quiet, trembling plea that pulled Emma from the edge of sleep. She reached down, fingers grazing Luna's trembling coat. The dog's eyes met hers, wide and shining with an unspoken fear. Luna's body pressed closer, seeking reassurance, guarding against threats Emma could neither see nor name. The night stretched on, filled with creaks and sighs that spoke of secrets lurking just beyond the thin walls. Emma's heart ached with both love and dread. Their silent bond was a fragile shield against the encroaching unknown. Across the street, a small boy paused at the edge of the sidewalk, his gaze locked on Luna as she prowled the yard with solemn purpose. The dog moved with quiet determination, nose low to the ground, tail flicking in measured rhythm. The child's eyes narrowed slightly, uncertainty flickering in their depths. Whispers among neighborhood children painted Luna as something other, an omen, a guardian, or something wilder. Emma caught the boy's glance from her porch, a pang of both protectiveness and unease tightening in her chest. The community's quiet judgment lingered like a shadow, coloring Luna's presence with suspicion. Yet to Emma, the dog was a beacon, fierce, loyal, and unyielding in her silent watch. The boy lingered a moment longer before retreating, leaving the yard wrapped once again in its uneasy stillness. The day waned into evening, and Emma carried Jacob up the narrow stairs to his bedroom, a sanctuary filled with soft toys and worn blankets. As she settled him beneath the quilt, she spoke softly of Luna's quiet courage, weaving tales of the dog's loyalty and strength. "She's our guardian," Emma whispered, brushing a stray lock of hair from Jacob's forehead. The boy's eyes sparkled with admiration and trust, the stories a balm against the shadows that crept into their lives. Luna's presence lingered just beyond the doorway, her silhouette a protective sentinel in the dim light. Emma's voice faltered briefly, the weight of hope and fear mingling in the quiet. "No matter what comes, we face it together," she promised, sealing the room with a kiss and a prayer. Later that night, Luna stood at the edge of the property, her body rigid, tail flicking in quick, tense beats. The moon cast silvery light over the shed's weathered boards, shadows pooling thick and black beneath the eaves. A faint rustling, too soft for human ears, caught Luna's attention. Her eyes narrowed, nostrils flaring as she sniffed the cool air, the hairs along her back rising imperceptibly. The dog's lips curled into a low growl, a warning carried on the wind. Her stance was a silent sentinel's vow, danger lurked, unseen but palpable. Emma, watching from the porch, felt a chill run down her spine, the familiar knot of unease tightening. Luna's instincts were screaming, and for once, Emma knew she had to listen. As dusk deepened, shadows stretched long across the yard, melting into the encroaching night. Emma sat on the porch steps, the cool air brushing against her skin, stirring memories she tried to keep locked away. Her mind wandered to her late husband, his laughter, his steadfast presence, and the fragile life she was trying to build for Jacob. The house creaked softly, the sounds blending with the distant call of an owl and the rustle of leaves in the wind. Luna rested beside her, head on her knees, a steady heartbeat against the uncertain dark. Emma's thoughts flickered uneasily between hope and fear, the hope for peace, the fear of what secrets the night might reveal. She tightened her grip on Luna's fur, a silent promise that no matter the darkness, they would face it together. The night was thick with stillness, the kind that presses heavy against the windows and seeps into the bones. Suddenly, the silence shattered. Luna's bark, sharp and relentless, sliced through the darkness. It was a deep, urgent sound, carrying the weight of warning and unspoken fear. The dog's voice echoed across the yard, bouncing off the old farmhouse walls and stirring the sleeping town. Emma jolted upright in bed, heart hammering, the dog's frantic energy pulling her from exhaustion's grip. She could hear Luna's paws pounding on the wooden floor below, the rapid thud syncing with her own racing pulse. The cries weren't playful or careless. They were a desperate alarm. Somewhere beyond the porch, in the shadowed periphery of the yard, Luna's eyes glinted fiercely, focused, unyielding. The night air was cold, carrying the scent of wet earth and distant smoke. Emma's breath caught as a chill swept through the room, the barking continuing, persistent, insistent, pulling her toward a truth she had yet to face. Emma stumbled from bed, rubbing her eyes against the harsh glow of the bedside lamp. The weight of the day's grief pressed down on her like a stone, but Luna's barking refused to be ignored. "Luna, please," she whispered, voice thick with fatigue and frustration. The dog paused briefly, ears flicking back, but her body remained tense, muscles coiled like springs ready to snap. Emma's feet moved toward the stairs, heart heavy with a tug of guilt and doubt. Was it just anxiety? Old habits? The loneliness pressing on them both? As Luna's cries grew more desperate, Emma's frustration warred with an instinctual worry clawing at her gut. Her hands shook slightly as she opened the front door, the cold air rushing in, and Luna bolted past, barking into the blackness beyond the porch light's flickering glow. Emma's breath hitched, unsure whether she was chasing shadows or something far more real. From the bedroom down the hall, Jacob's small voice trembled. "Mom, I heard something outside, like someone whispering." Emma's footsteps quickened, and she found him clutching his blanket, wide-eyed and pale. Kneeling beside him, she forced a smile, brushing back the soft strands of his hair. "It's just the wind, sweetie. Old houses creak. Sometimes the trees talk." Her voice was soft, coaxing, but beneath it lay a trembling uncertainty. Jacob's gaze flicked nervously toward the window, where shadows seemed to twist in unnatural patterns. "But Luna's barking so much. Is she scared too? Emma wrapped an arm around him, willing herself to believe her words. Luna's just being protective. Nothing's wrong, I promise. Yet, as she spoke, her mind raced, unable to silence the knot of unease tightening in her chest. The night held secrets they were only beginning to sense. Downstairs, Luna's silhouette flickered near the back porch, bathed in moonlight. The dog's usual calm was shattered. She paced in restless circles, eyes fixed on the dark outline of the old shed. The heavy wooden door remained locked, but the shadow it cast seemed to breathe with a silent menace. Luna's growl was low and guttural, her body stiff as a drawn bowstring. Emma approached cautiously, calling softly, but Luna retreated further, nose wrinkling in silent warning. The dog's tail was down, twitching sporadically, signaling unease deeper than any bark could express. The cold night air smelled faintly of damp earth and something metallic, an unsettling mixture that prickled Emma's senses. She knelt beside Luna, whispering reassurance, but the dog's refusal to come inside sent a sharp pang through Emma's heart. This was no ordinary fear. It was a primal alert, a connection to a hidden danger lurking just beyond the light's reach. Emma retreated inside, locking the door behind her with trembling hands. She stared at the dark window where Luna still lingered, the dog's form barely visible but unyielding in her vigil. She poured herself a glass of water, trying to shake the creeping dread that gnawed at her. "It's just nerves," she told herself aloud, but the words rang hollow. Every instinct in her body screamed that Luna was sensing something real, something Emma couldn't yet name. Her thoughts spiraled through memories of strange noises, flickering lights, and whispered warnings from neighbors. The shed's secret, once a distant shadow in her mind, was beginning to take shape, and with it came a cold certainty that their fragile peace was about to shatter. She rubbed her eyes and exhaled deeply, forcing herself to push aside the fear, for Jacob's sake and for Luna's. Outside, the moon hung low, its pale light casting long, eerie shadows across the overgrown yard. Luna's silhouette was rigid as stone, her eyes locked on a shadowed corner near the boundary fence. The soft rustle of leaves and distant crack of a branch made her ears twitch with heightened alertness. Her nose quivered, drawing in scents invisible to human senses, earth disturbed, faint traces of something unsettling. The dog's muscles tensed, ready to spring, tail stiff and flicking with tension. From inside, Emma's gaze followed Luna's fixated stare, the air thick with unsaid fears. The night seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the unseen to reveal itself. Luna's silent vigil was both a warning and a call, a beckoning to face the darkness they had long ignored. Emma's mind flickered back to an afternoon weeks earlier, a casual conversation tinged with unease. Mrs. Henderson, the elderly neighbor, had leaned close, voice hushed and eyes darting nervously. That shed, it's held secrets longer than anyone cares to remember. Folks say strange things happen around it, disappearances, whispers in the wind. Best you keep your boy and that dog away. Emma had nodded politely then, dismissing the words as old superstition. But now, in the dead of night, the warning echoed sharply. The stories she'd once brushed off felt weighty, a chilling undercurrent beneath the town's quiet surface. The shed was no longer just an old building. It was a silent sentinel guarding truths better left buried. Emma swallowed hard, the shadows from her past and the present converging with an icy grip. A sudden noise sliced through the night. A crunch of gravel, the faint scrape of footsteps shifting just beyond the porch light. Luna's body reacted instantly. The fur along her back rose in sharp, spiky tufts as she let out a low, guttural growl that vibrated through the still air. Her head whipped toward the sound, eyes blazing with fierce vigilance. Emma strained her ears, but heard only the lingering echoes of the steps, fading into silence. She stepped toward the door, heart pounding, but found no sign of intrusion. No shadow moved beyond the veil of darkness. Luna remained frozen, tail stiff, muscles taut as coiled wire. The dog's primal alertness unsettled Emma deeply, This was no random noise. Something or someone was out there, watching and waiting. Without warning, a sharp gust of wind whipped through the yard, rattling the porch light and extinguishing its feeble glow. Darkness swallowed the familiar edges of the world, and Emma was plunged into thick shadow. The cold seeped deeper, pressing against her skin as the night seemed to close in. Luna's bark cut through the black, a frantic, echoing alarm that shattered the stillness. Emma fumbled for the flashlight, hands trembling, while the wind howled like a distant, restless spirit. The shadows danced wildly, twisting and flickering with every gust. Fear clawed at Emma's throat as unseen eyes seemed to peer from the darkness, and the night stretched endlessly, heavy with menace. Luna pressed close, her body a solid anchor against the unknown, but even the dog's fierce courage couldn't banish the chill of uncertainty that had settled deep within. Jacob's small hand gripped Luna's collar tightly, his knuckles white in the faint moonlight. His wide eyes flickered nervously between the shadows and his mother's steady, yet anxious, face. The boy's trust in Luna was unshakable, her presence a shield against the dark fears he couldn't yet voice. "Luna's not scared," he whispered, voice trembling but certain. Emma offered a reassuring smile, though her heart thudded wildly. "She's just being protective, honey. That's all." But as Luna's low growl rippled through the tense air, even Emma knew this was more than protectiveness. It was a call to heed the unseen. Jacob leaned closer to Luna, seeking comfort in the dog's unwavering calm, while the house seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the coming storm. Emma paced the length of the kitchen, the old floorboards creaking beneath her feet. Luna lay alert at her side, ears pricked and eyes scanning every shadow. The house felt smaller now, walls closing in with unspoken threats. The choice pressed heavily on Emma's shoulders: call for help and risk exposing secrets better left hidden, or face the encroaching darkness alone with only Luna by her side. Her mind raced, weighing the cost of truth against the safety of silence. She pictured Jacob's innocent face, the fragile hope of a new beginning slipping through her fingers. Luna's restless pacing was a silent plea, a demand for action. Emma's breath caught in her throat, and for the first time, the weight of her fear pressed fully into reality. She knew that to protect those she loved, she had to step into the unknown, come what may. The night stretched heavy and still, broken suddenly by a faint, trembling cry carried faintly on the wind. Luna's ears shot up, nostrils flaring as she lifted her head sharply, muscles taut and poised. Jacob's wide eyes locked onto the source, his breath catching as he whispered, "Did you hear that?" Emma's gaze sharpened, but the sound was lost to her, too soft, too elusive. Luna bolted toward the shed, tail stiff, paws pounding on the cracked earth. Jacob stumbled after her, clutching her collar, the cry repeating once more, a fragile, desperate plea that stirred something buried deep within Emma's soul. The shed loomed like a dark monument against the moonlit sky, its secrets beckoning them forward. Fear and hope tangled in the air, a silent summons that no one could ignore. The sun hung low over the sleepy town, casting long shadows through narrow streets and weathered sidewalks. At the small grocery store's checkout, Emma overheard whispers, quiet murmurs dripping with unease. "You heard about that old shed, right? Folks say people have vanished near there. No one talks about it much, but the stories don't lie." Another voice replied in a hushed tone, "My cousin swears he saw lights flickering inside. Strange noises at night." Emma's fingers tightened around her shopping bag. The shed, the very place Luna guarded so fiercely, was no longer just a relic of the past. The community's buried fears surfaced, mixing with rumors and half-truths. As she left the store, the weight of those whispered warnings pressed on her like a gathering storm, wrapping the quiet town in suspicion and shadows. Later that day, as Emma tended the garden, a figure approached from the gravel driveway. Mr. Caldwell, a weathered man with a stern gaze, stopped beside the fence. "You don't want to get too curious about that shed, Emma," he said, voice low and gravelly. His eyes narrowed, sharp and wary. People who poke around there tend to stir up trouble, things best left alone. Emma met his gaze steadily, masking her rising frustration. "I'm not looking for trouble, Mr. Caldwell. I just want to understand." He shook his head slowly. "Sometimes, the truth is a burden. You've got a boy to protect, and a dog that's scared for a reason." The warning hung in the air between them, thick with unspoken threats. Emma's heart pounded. Was it caution or a veiled challenge? She didn't know yet, but the town's quiet watchfulness felt like a tightening noose. As dusk painted the sky in bruised purples and deep oranges, a group of teenagers gathered near the edge of Emma's property. Their laughter carried on the cool evening breeze, but Luna's stance shifted immediately. Her body stiffened, ears pressing forward, and a low growl rumbled from deep in her throat. Her eyes locked onto the youths with fierce intensity, tail rigid and flicking with warning. The teenagers paused, glancing nervously at the dog, sensing the charged atmosphere. One of them whispered, "Better move on. That dog's not just guarding a house." Luna's presence was a silent boundary, a protective force that repelled the intrusion. Emma watched from the porch, a mix of gratitude and worry swirling inside her. The dog's instincts were no longer mere protectiveness. They were a signal of a deeper threat lurking near the boundaries of their fragile sanctuary. Inside the dim aisles of the town's hardware store, Emma picked up some supplies, hoping for a distraction from the growing tension at home. But murmurs trailed her as she moved down the aisles, quiet exchanges about the cursed property, old secrets, and things better forgotten. Two women whispered near the paint section, voices dropping as Emma approached. "The last family that lived there, a child disappeared, no one knows what happened," one said. The other nodded solemnly. "Some say the owner went crazy, locked everything up tight, and left town overnight." Emma's grip on the paint tightened. The stories she'd heard before were now sharp daggers, twisting into the fabric of her daily life. The town's fear and suspicion were no longer distant echoes. They were creeping into every corner, pressing her to decide whether to flee or face the buried past that Luna so fiercely guarded. That evening, as Emma tucked Jacob into bed, the boy's eyes were wide with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "Mom," he whispered, "the kids at school say no one goes near the shed after dark. They say it's haunted, or worse." Emma smiled gently, brushing his hair back. "Stories to scare little kids, Jacob. Nothing more." But his gaze held a weight beyond childhood fancy. "Luna won't even go near it at night. She growls if we walk close." Emma's chest tightened. The innocent words from her son echoed the warnings she'd tried to dismiss. The quiet dread in Jacob's voice pierced through her, revealing the layers of fear that now shrouded their home. As she switched off the light, she promised herself she would protect him, from the shadows lurking in the town, and from the secrets locked behind the shed's door. Days passed with mounting tension, and Emma found herself at a crossroads. The whispers of the town clung to her like a second skin, their weight growing heavier with each passing day. She sat alone on the porch, watching Luna patrol the yard with unwavering vigilance. Emma's mind spun. Were these just old ghost stories, or was there truth tangled in the shadows? She felt the sting of isolation keenly, the distance growing between her and the community she longed to belong to. Her attempts to ask questions were met with cold stares or hurried changes of subject. The divide was palpable, a wall built from fear, suspicion, and unspoken histories. Luna nuzzled her hand gently, a silent reminder of loyalty amid loneliness. Emma inhaled deeply, knowing that whatever lay ahead, she would face it with the dog by her side, even if it meant standing alone. Nightfall brought little respite. Emma lay awake, staring into the darkness beyond the bedroom window. Below, Luna paced with a restless energy, the soft thump of her paws a constant reminder of unseen dangers. The dog's ears twitched at every whisper of wind, tail flicking nervously as if tracking shadows only she could perceive. Emma's thoughts tangled in a web of fears, of the past, the shed, the town's watchful eyes. Her breath came shallow, mirroring Luna's uneasy rhythm. They were two souls caught in a silent struggle against the unknown, their shared anxiety a bond forged in the crucible of uncertainty. As the clock ticked toward midnight, the night stretched endlessly, thick with tension and unanswered questions. From the dim corner of a nearby porch, a shadowy figure observed the farmhouse. The visitor's eyes glinted briefly as they scanned the property, lingering on Luna's silhouette by the fence. Their stance was casual but calculated, a predator masked in calm. Emma noticed the flicker of movement from the window, heart skipping. The visitor remained still as dusk deepened, a silent sentinel cloaked in mystery. Emma's unease blossomed into full awareness. Someone was watching, waiting. The presence was a reminder that the secrets hidden in the shed were no longer just ghosts. They had drawn real, tangible eyes. Luna growled softly, her body stiffening in response to the unseen threat. Emma's mind raced. Who was this watcher, and what did they want? The night felt colder, heavier, charged with the promise of confrontation. Attempts to bridge the gap with neighbors faltered. Conversations were clipped, eyes averted, words carefully measured. At the mailbox, Mrs. Harris gave Emma a curt nod but quickly turned away, avoiding any real exchange. "People talk," she muttered once, voice thick with warning. Emma's questions about the shed's history were met with cold shoulders or hurried excuses. The unspoken distrust hung between them like a dense fog. Emma felt the sting of isolation deepen. She was an outsider, carrying the burden of curiosity in a town that prized silence. Luna sat faithfully at her side, a steady presence amid the fractured social landscape. The divide was more than gossip, it was a wall built of fear and old wounds, threatening to trap Emma and her family in a growing darkness. Without warning, the neighborhood plunged into blackness. The power cut like a knife through the night. The usual hum of electricity ceased, replaced by an eerie silence broken only by Luna's sharp bark and the distant rumble of thunder. Emma scrambled for a flashlight, her hands trembling as she flicked it on, the beam slicing through the thick darkness. The world outside the window was a shadowed void, every familiar shape twisted into something unknown and threatening. The sudden loss of light intensified the sense of vulnerability pressing down on her chest. Luna's body pressed close, her eyes shining with fierce loyalty, anchoring Emma amidst the growing storm of uncertainty and fear. The night stretched on, heavy and unforgiving, testing their resolve. From the depths of the night came whispers, voices carried faintly on the wind, threading through the trees and creeping toward the farmhouse. Luna stiffened, ears angled sharply, muscles coiled in readiness. The dog's gaze pierced the darkness, tracking the movement of shadows beyond sight. Emma strained to listen, catching fragments of phrases, warnings veiled in half-truths, threats spoken in hushed tones. "Leave it be, she doesn't know, danger comes with the dawn." The voices faded as quickly as they'd come, but the tension lingered like smoke in the air. Emma's heart hammered, and Luna's growl rumbled low and steady, a solemn vow to protect. The mystery that had begun as distant murmurs was now an urgent, living force, drawing them both deeper into its shadowed web. Torn between worlds, Emma sat in the dim glow of the kitchen light, the weight of decisions pressing down on her. The community's voice was a chorus of fear and caution, urging silence and distance. But Luna, steadfast and unwavering, called to something primal inside her, a trust beyond words. Emma's thoughts wove between doubt and resolve, her heart aching for safety yet craving truth. Could she ignore the warnings and embrace the bond with her dog? Or would the cost be too high? As the night deepened, so did her conviction. Whatever secrets the shed held, whatever dangers lurked unseen, Emma knew she couldn't turn away. Not now. Not when Luna's silent courage demanded she face the darkness head-on. The town's small library, a brick building worn by decades of wind and rain, held quiet secrets beneath its dusty shelves. Emma met Mr. Whitaker, the reserved local historian, during a hesitant visit. His silvered hair and steady eyes gave him an aura of knowledge and weight. He spoke softly, as if afraid the walls might overhear. That shed, it's more than just a relic. It's tied to stories many have tried to bury. Disappearances, old family feuds, whispers of things no one dares speak aloud. Emma leaned closer, heart pounding with a mix of dread and curiosity. The historian's gaze dropped to a faded photograph, fingers tracing its edges. If you plan to dig deeper, you should know, some truths come at a cost. His words lingered like a warning as Emma stepped back into the sunlight, the shadows of the past reaching longer than she expected. In the playground at the edge of town, Jacob found an unexpected ally, Eli, a quiet boy with cautious eyes that seemed to hold the weight of secrets. Eli spoke in hushed tones about the woods and the old shed, warning, "We don't go near there after dark. Stuff happens. People disappear." His words sent a chill through Jacob, but also sparked a fragile connection built on shared fear and curiosity. As they tossed a worn baseball between them, Jacob felt the bond grow, a tether to a world he didn't fully understand but wanted to face. "Maybe Luna knows," Eli added, glancing toward the distant trees. Jacob nodded, feeling the first stirrings of courage, bolstered by this new friendship amid the gathering storm. One rainy afternoon, Emma sifted through a dusty box of her late husband's belongings, searching for fragments of comfort. Beneath faded photographs and worn journals, she found a bundle of letters tied with a brittle ribbon. The handwriting was familiar, but the words, careful, cryptic, hinted at secrets never spoken aloud. "I fear what the past may reveal," one letter read, "and the cost of uncovering truths better left buried." Another mentioned an old family feud intertwined with the shed's history, a lineage of silence and guarded pain. Emma's hands trembled as she pieced together a story shadowed by guilt and fear. These letters were a lifeline to understanding, but also a key that might unlock dangers she wasn't yet ready to face. Luna's gentle nudge reminded her of the present, of trust and protection amid the unfolding mystery. Under the cloak of night, Luna prowled the perimeter of the property with heightened senses. Her ears flicked at every rustle, nostrils flaring as sense whispered secrets only she could decipher. Suddenly, her gaze fixed on a shadow slipping between trees near the edge of the shed. Her growl was low but fierce, a warning carried on the chilly air. Emma, awakened by the sound, hurried to the window just in time to see the figure vanish into darkness. The night swallowed all trace, but Luna's tense posture told Emma this was no ordinary trespasser. Fear coiled tight in her chest. Someone was watching, waiting, and the mystery they guarded was far from over. Mr. Collins, a grizzled neighbor with weathered skin and wary eyes, approached Emma's porch one evening. His voice was rough but measured as he said, "You're stirring things better left alone. That shed holds shadows darker than you know." Emma met his gaze, searching for kindness beneath his stern warning. "Why won't you tell me what's really going on?" she asked quietly. He hesitated, then spoke in riddles. "Some doors, once opened, can't be closed. Protect your boy. Protect yourself." His words left a lingering chill, the ambiguity gnawing at Emma's resolve. Was he a protector or a harbinger of danger? The weight of his warning settled like a fog, thick and inescapable. Alone in the quiet of her living room, Emma wrestled with a difficult decision. Should she turn to the sheriff? The man who represented law and order, but also the skeptical gaze of a small town wary of outsiders? She imagined his doubt, the whispered questions about a grieving widow chasing ghost stories. Yet the need for protection, for answers, gnawed at her. Luna's steady presence by her side was a silent encouragement, a reminder that she was not alone. Emma weighed the risks and the hope, knowing that seeking help could either bring justice or deepen isolation. Her heart ached with the responsibility of safeguarding her family while unearthing truths that might shatter fragile peace. Days grew heavier with suspicion and veiled hostility from the community. Emma felt the walls closing in, whispers turning to pointed glances, and the weight of judgment pressing down. Yet through it all, Luna was a constant, a living shield of loyalty and calm. When harsh words met her ears, Emma found solace in Luna's quiet companionship, the way her gaze held steady, her body close in protective solidarity. One evening, as a group of neighbors murmured from across the street, Luna rested her head gently on Emma's lap, grounding her with the unspoken promise of unwavering support. In that simple act, Emma found renewed strength to face the growing darkness and the mysteries still hidden beneath the shed's shadow. While wandering the woods near the property, Jacob stumbled upon a worn, folded piece of parchment partially buried under leaves and twigs. The faded map depicted the layout of the land, with a peculiar mark near the old shed. His heart raced, a blend of excitement and apprehension flooding him. Could this be the key to understanding the secrets Luna guarded so fiercely? When he showed Emma, her face tightened with a mix of hope and fear. The discovery brought a surge of possibility but also a sharp edge of danger. Luna growled softly, as if warning that curiosity might lead them into shadows not yet ready to reveal themselves. The map was a beacon and a challenge, pulling them deeper into the tangled past of the land and its silent protector. In the quiet moments before dawn, Emma sat alone, the weight of her decisions heavy on her shoulders. Was unearthing the past worth the risk to her son, her fragile family? The letters, the whispers, the map, all threads in a tapestry of danger and pain. Yet turning away felt like betrayal, to herself, to her husband's memory, and to Luna's unspoken trust. The internal battle raged fiercely, the need for truth clashing with maternal instinct to shield and protect. Emma's hands clenched into fists as resolve hardened within her. She would face the shadows, not as a victim, but as a guardian, ready to fight for the safety and healing of those she loved. At the weekly town market, Emma met Mrs. Harper, an elderly woman with eyes clouded by time but sharp with memory. Over a pot of coffee, Mrs. Harper recounted a tale from decades past, a young child who vanished near the shed under mysterious circumstances. "No one ever found him," she said softly, voice tinged with sorrow. "They say the woods swallowed him whole, but I think there's more to it. Secrets the town's been too scared to face." Emma listened, the story weaving a dark thread into the tapestry of her own fears. Luna, beside her, seemed to grow even more alert, as if absorbing the weight of history and the restless spirits tied to the land. The past and present converged in that moment, sharpening the edges of the mystery they were bound to unravel. One afternoon, a stranger walked down the dusty road toward Emma's property, a man unfamiliar, with eyes that flickered with something unreadable. Luna's hackles rose immediately. She barked sharply, a warning shot echoing through the quiet air. The neighborhood's wary eyes turned to Emma, suspicion brewing like a storm cloud. The stranger paused, raising hands in a gesture of peace, but Luna's growls deepened, body tense and poised for defense. Emma felt the growing divide, the fine line between welcome and warning stretching thinner. The dog's fierce loyalty was a shield but also a signal to the town that Emma's family was no longer entirely safe or accepted. Tension rippled through the community, threading uncertainty into every conversation. In the sanctuary of their small kitchen, Emma and Jacob shared quiet moments of connection. Over steaming mugs of cocoa, they spoke in low tones about fears and hopes, Luna resting her head on Emma's feet, a steadfast guardian. Each challenge, each whispered secret, wove them tighter together. Jacob's innocence balanced Emma's guarded strength, their bond a lifeline amid the storm of suspicion and fear. Luna's presence was the thread stitching their fragile family into a tapestry of resilience. They faced the unknown not as fractured souls but as a unit, bound by love, loyalty, and the quiet courage that only comes from facing darkness together. The sky had deepened into a rich indigo, pierced by faint stars struggling through drifting clouds. Luna's ears twitched sharply as a shadow emerged from the thicket beyond the property line. She moved with deliberate grace, a low rumble vibrating in her throat as she positioned herself between the house and the figure approaching through the dark. The man hesitated under the flickering porch light, his face obscured by a hood. Luna's intense gaze locked on him, her stance unyielding, muscles taut, tail stiff. A sharp bark cut through the stillness, echoing into the cool night. The intruder took a cautious step back, his eyes wide, registering the silent warning. Emma, awakened by the noise, peered through the window, heart pounding. The dog's protective courage was palpable, a living shield against the unknown threat pressing against their fragile safety. The morning light revealed traces of the previous night's tension. Emma's eyes narrowed as she noticed the loose soil around the shed's foundation, freshly disturbed earth piled awkwardly near the weathered boards. Her breath hitched when she spotted the broken padlock dangling from a splintered latch, a silent testament to intrusion. The scent of damp wood mingled with a faint, acrid odor that set her nerves on edge. Luna circled the area warily, nose to the ground, alert to every hidden detail. Emma's fingers trembled as she traced a jagged scratch on the door, proof that someone had been there, someone intent on secrets long buried. The quiet of the rural morning was shattered by a cold realization. The past was not done with them yet. Darkness wrapped the house in a suffocating cloak as eerie noises rippled through the night air, distant footsteps crunching over gravel, a door creaking open somewhere beyond the yard. Emma's pulse quickened, each sound setting off a fresh wave of dread. Jacob clung to her side, eyes wide with a mix of fear and trust. Luna's growls rose in the shadows, low and warning, as the dog's gaze scanned every flicker of movement. The wind carried whispers of rustling leaves and broken branches, painting a soundtrack of unseen presence. Emma's mind raced between comforting her son and preparing for the unknown. The night, once peaceful, had become a stage for lurking danger and silent watchfulness. From the periphery of the property, a figure moved stealthily, furtive steps brushing against underbrush, a silhouette swallowed by darkness. Luna's posture stiffened instantly. Her growl deepened, a resonant warning that filled the chilled air. She advanced with calculated stealth, ears pinned back, eyes burning with fierce intelligence. The intruder paused, glancing back, tension rippling through their body as Luna's presence grew nearer. With a sudden, sharp bark, Luna declared her territory, sending the figure stumbling backward into the shadows. Emma watched from the porch, breath caught in her throat. The dog's silent heroism was unmistakable, a guardian embodying all the courage Emma lacked in the moment. The figure vanished into the night, leaving behind only the echo of Luna's defiance and the pressing question: who was watching and why? While retracing the perimeter near the shed, Emma's eyes caught a flash of color tangled in the brambles. A torn piece of fabric, faded and frayed but unmistakably part of a worn jacket described in old police reports. She knelt, heart pounding, and carefully retrieved the scrap, the coarse threads whispering tales of violence and despair. The fabric smelled faintly of damp earth and decay, a tangible link to the missing person whose disappearance haunted the town for years. Luna sat beside her, nose twitching, eyes sharp with understanding as if sharing in the weight of the discovery. Emma's mind spiraled between hope and fear. This piece of cloth was proof that the secrets they were chasing were real, dangerous, and closer than ever. The fabric wasn't just a clue, it was a challenge to confront the shadows that had settled over their lives. Late one evening, as moonlight spilled silver across the kitchen floor, Jacob confided in Emma his growing fears. "Mom, I think someone's watching us. I see shadows in the trees when I look outside." His voice trembled, a mixture of childhood innocence and mounting dread. Emma pulled him close, soothing but unsettled herself. Luna, curled at their feet, lifted her head, ears pricked toward the window. The dog's vigilance mirrored Jacob's fears, deepening the unspoken bond between boy and beast. Emma whispered reassurances she barely believed, knowing the woods held more than just wildlife. They held secrets, dangers that lurked just beyond the light. Jacob's fears became a stark reminder. Their safety was fragile, and the mystery was closing in. The town hall was packed with faces tense with fear and suspicion. Voices rose, sharp and accusatory, as neighbors debated the escalating strange events around Emma's property. Fingers pointed, whispers became outright accusations, some blaming Emma's presence, others fearing old secrets stirring unrest. Mr. Collins spoke with veiled bitterness. "We need to protect our families, and that means facing uncomfortable truths." But the conversation fractured into heated arguments, paranoia rippling through the room like wildfire. Emma sat quietly, Luna at her side, feeling the weight of isolation deepen. The community's fractures mirrored her own inner turmoil, a mix of hope for justice and the cold sting of alienation. As the meeting ended with no resolution, Emma realized the battle was not only against an unseen enemy but also the fragile trust within the town itself. Thunder cracked like a gunshot, and rain pounded the roof with relentless fury. Luna's barking shattered the storm's rhythm, urgent, frantic, impossible to ignore. Emma jolted upright, heart hammering as the dog paced fiercely by the window, eyes wide and fixed on the darkness beyond. Jacob stirred, fearful, clinging to her. The wind howled, rattling the shutters as Luna's growls mingled with the tempest. Emma threw on her coat, grabbing a flashlight, the beam slicing through sheets of rain. Every sense heightened, ears straining for the slightest sound, muscles coiled for confrontation. Luna darted to the door, nose to the floor, leading Emma toward the source of the disturbance. The storm was a chaotic veil for danger, but Luna's courage was a beacon cutting through the night's terror. Together, they braced for whatever waited beyond the safety of their home. The sheriff's office smelled of stale coffee and worn leather, a place where rules were strict and questions often met with indifference. Emma's voice trembled but held resolve as she laid out her fears and Luna's warnings. "There's someone out there. Someone watching. I need protection, for me, for my son." The sheriff leaned back, eyes narrowing. "Miss, we can't act on dog barks and shadows. If you have real evidence, bring it forward. Until then, this is your fight." Frustration and isolation coiled in Emma's chest. She glanced at the badge on the desk, a symbol of authority that suddenly felt distant and unreachable. The weight of skepticism pressed down, but she left with quiet determination, knowing she couldn't wait for permission. Luna's steady presence outside the station was a reminder that sometimes protection meant standing firm alone. Moonlight bathed the ground as Emma and Luna ventured into the night once more, flashlights cutting narrow paths through the darkness. The cold air was sharp and thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. Luna's nose guided them toward a spot beneath the shed, where the ground appeared oddly disturbed. Digging through loose soil, Emma uncovered a rusted, tarnished locket, the kind that carries memories and promises long forgotten. Her breath hitched at the weight of the discovery. Luna sat alert, ears twitching, eyes scanning the shadows. The night air grew heavier with unspoken truths, the evidence tangible yet haunting. Each find was a thread pulling Emma deeper into a web of past sorrows and present dangers, but retreat was no longer an option. The truth demanded unveiling, no matter the cost. The woods behind the house held a sinister quiet as Jacob wandered too far one afternoon, curiosity luring him toward the shadows. Suddenly, a rustle snapped through the trees, and a figure stepped into view, a man with a harsh gaze and quick movements. Jacob froze, fear blooming cold and sharp. Before the stranger could advance, Luna appeared like a silent storm, growling low and fierce, positioning herself between Jacob and danger. Her eyes locked on the threat, teeth bared in a protective snarl. The man hesitated, then retreated, melting back into the undergrowth. Jacob's trembling hands gripped Luna's fur, relief washing over him. Emma, rushing to the scene, felt the profound depth of Luna's silent heroism, an unyielding guardian against the darkness threatening her family. In the dim light of the early morning, Emma stood on the porch, wrapped in a heavy coat, Luna resting at her feet. Her breath formed soft clouds in the cold air, mingling with the scent of pine and earth. The weight of what was to come pressed on her shoulders. A battle not just for safety, but for truth and justice. The clues, the warnings, and Luna's unwavering courage had brought them to this precipice. Emma's heart beat steady, resolve solidifying like the frost beneath her boots. She glanced down at Luna, eyes shining with trust and loyalty. Together, they were ready to face the darkness, no matter how deep or dangerous it ran. The quiet before the storm was brief. The fight for their future was imminent. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows over the weathered boards of the old shed, the wood rough beneath Emma's trembling hands as she knelt on the dusty floor. Her fingers traced an uneven edge in the warped planks, a slight depression barely noticeable amid the dirt and decay. Heart pounding, she pushed gently, revealing a hidden trapdoor cleverly concealed beneath years of neglect. The air inside smelled of damp earth and forgotten secrets. Luna sat alert nearby, ears twitching, sensing the shift in tension. Emma's breath hitched, a mixture of dread and hope rising inside her chest. The trapdoor was more than a physical entry. It was a doorway into the tangled past she had tried to bury. As she reached for the rusty latch, the quiet around her grew heavier, as if the shed itself was holding its breath, waiting for the truth to surface. With the trapdoor ajar, Luna wasted no time. Her paws scrambled at the dirt beneath, claws scraping with desperate urgency. Emma knelt beside her, brushing soil away to reveal the corner of a weathered wooden box, its surface marred by time and the elements. Luna's eyes locked onto the box, intense and unwavering, her body tense with silent command. Emma's hands trembled as she lifted the lid, the creak echoing in the stillness like a whispered secret. Inside lay faded photographs, brittle papers, and an assortment of objects, tokens of a past long obscured. Each item seemed to pulse with hidden meaning, threads of a story tangled with mystery and pain. Luna's deep, steady gaze anchored Emma, a reminder that they were not alone in this search for truth. Emma carefully sifted through the contents, sepia-toned photographs of the town decades ago, faces she didn't recognize yet felt hauntingly familiar. Letters penned in hurried script detailed hushed dealings, betrayals, and warnings. Among the papers were official documents hinting at a scandal involving a powerful local figure, names crossed out, dates circled, cryptic references to disappearances, and cover-ups. The gravity of the discovery pressed down on Emma like a stone. This was no ordinary secret. It was a dark stain on the town's history, buried beneath layers of fear and silence. Luna's silent presence beside her, the steady beat of her heart, grounded Emma's spiraling thoughts. The shed was a gateway not only to the past but to a reckoning that could change everything. The weight of the revelations settled deep within Emma's soul, stirring a fire she hadn't known was there. No longer could she retreat behind grief or fatigue. The shadows cast by the shed stretched far beyond mere wooden walls. They touched lives, silenced voices, and threatened justice. Luna's gaze met hers, unwavering and full of unspoken promise. Emma felt the fragile threads of her resolve weave into armor. Her husband's memory, the safety of her son, the quiet hope for peace, they all demanded courage now. The path ahead was fraught with peril, but the truth would not be buried again. With trembling hands, Emma gathered the documents, determination steadying her breath. The past was calling, and she was ready to answer. As Emma studied the documents, Jacob's voice rang out from the edge of the shed. "Mom, come look at this." Kneeling beside him, Emma's eyes widened as he held a fragile, leather-bound diary, its pages yellowed with age. The handwriting was small, tentative, words of a child caught in a web of fear and secrecy. Entries detailed days filled with whispered threats, a hiding place in the woods, and a desperate hope for rescue. The child's voice echoed through time, a haunting reminder of lives touched and lost. Luna nudged Jacob gently, her presence a balm to the boy's growing unease. Emma's heart clenched, the diary a poignant bridge between past and present, igniting a fierce need to uncover the full story and bring light to the shadows. The days that followed were marked by Luna's constant vigilance, her eyes scanning horizons both seen and unseen. Emma watched the dog closely, noting every stiffened muscle, every low growl at the slightest disturbance. Luna's instincts, once dismissed as mere animal intuition, now held profound weight. The bond between woman and dog deepened, an unspoken partnership forged in adversity and trust. Emma found herself leaning on Luna's silent guidance, a compass pointing through the fog of doubt and fear. In moments of solitude, Luna's steady presence was a lifeline, reminding Emma that despite the darkness, hope endured. The dog's unwavering focus was no longer just protection, it was a call to action. At a local gathering, Emma found herself drawn into conversation with Mrs. Harper, an elderly woman whose eyes held the weight of countless stories. With a voice both frail and resolute, Mrs. Harper recounted tales of the shed's ominous past, a place where whispered disappearances once stirred fear and where silence was bought with intimidation. She spoke of a scandal long buried, of families torn apart and truths concealed behind smiles and closed doors. Emma listened intently, the threads of the town's hidden wounds weaving into the narrative unraveling before her. Luna sat calmly at her side, sensing the shift in the air. The elder's words were both a warning and a beacon, urging Emma onward in her quest for justice amid shadows too deep to ignore. Alone in the quiet of the night, Emma's mind drifted back to moments long past, her late husband's hushed phone calls, the furtive glances exchanged in shadowed corners, the weight of unspoken burdens he bore. Memories surfaced of his silent struggles, fragments of conversations that now resonated with new meaning. The truth they uncovered was entangled with his life, a legacy hidden beneath layers of grief and fear. Luna rested beside her, sensing the storm within. Emma's internal battle waged fiercely, love and loss intertwined with the thirst for answers. The past was no longer a closed chapter but a living force shaping the present. The shadows that had claimed her husband now beckoned her to face them head-on. Through the turmoil, Luna emerged not just as a guardian but as a beacon of hope. Her quiet strength, her fierce loyalty, became a symbol for Emma and Jacob, proof that even in the darkest moments, courage could shine. Luna's every action spoke of steadfast protection and unwavering love, inspiring Emma to stand taller, fight harder. The dog's presence transcended fear, embodying resilience that kindled warmth amid the cold uncertainty. In Luna's eyes, Emma saw the reflection of a spirit unbroken, a silent hero willing to face whatever darkness lay ahead. The bond between them was no longer simply survival, it was the heartbeat of a shared journey toward healing and truth. News of Emma's discoveries rippled through the town, fracturing the fragile peace. Some hailed her courage, rallying to uncover justice long denied. Others recoiled, fearing the upheaval that truth might bring. Conversations turned heated, alliances shifted, and old wounds reopened beneath the surface civility. The community's divisions grew sharper, suspicions seeping into everyday exchanges. Emma found herself at the center of a storm, not just of mystery and danger but of fractured loyalties and whispered resentments. Luna's watchful eyes mirrored the tension, steadfast through the turmoil. The town's facade of calm was cracking, revealing a fragile truth that could no longer be contained. Determined and resolute, Emma stood at the crossroads of fear and hope. The dangers were real, threats whispered in shadowed alleys, isolation born from fractured community ties, but her conscience would not allow silence. For Jacob, for Luna, and for the truth itself, she would face whatever lay ahead. Every discovery, every whispered warning, strengthened her resolve. Luna's steady presence at her side was a constant reminder. Courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. Emma's heart beat with a newfound purpose, the weight of the past transformed into a fierce drive for justice. No longer a victim of circumstance, she was a woman ready to fight. Nightfall cloaked the farmhouse in deep shadows as Emma, Jacob, and Luna prepared for the coming confrontation. Luna patrolled the yard tirelessly, eyes sharp, ears attuned to every whisper of wind and rustle of leaves. The air was thick with anticipation, a fragile calm before the storm. Emma moved through the house with quiet determination, packing essentials, steadying her breath. Jacob clung to Luna's side, drawing strength from the dog's unwavering presence. Together, they formed a small but unbreakable unit, bound by trust and shared purpose. Luna's watchful silhouette against the moonlit sky was a promise of protection and hope. As the night deepened, Emma whispered a silent vow to stand firm, ready to face the darkness and reclaim their future. The morning light filtered softly through the kitchen window as Emma gathered her closest allies. Her voice, steady but charged with urgency, carried the weight of her resolve. Friends from the town, neighbors once wary but now bound by shared concern, and the local sheriff sat around the worn table. Each face reflected a mix of skepticism and hope, fear and determination. Emma laid out the evidence, documents, photographs, and Luna's vigilant behaviors, painting a vivid picture of the darkness lurking beneath their tranquil community. She urged them to stand united, to protect not just her family but the town's fragile soul. Luna rested quietly at Emma's feet, eyes flickering with quiet confidence, a silent testament to the stakes at hand. The room, thick with anticipation, was the calm before the coming storm. Outside, the late afternoon air hummed with an uneasy stillness. Luna prowled the edge of the yard, her paws stirring dry leaves and cracked earth. Her body tensed with every sound, a distant owl's call, the rustle of wind through the trees, the faint crunch of footsteps not her own. Her ears flicked, tail lowered but quivering with anticipation. Luna's gaze darted toward the darkening horizon, as if sensing a threat invisible to human eyes. Emma watched from the porch, heart tight with the same apprehension. The dog's restless energy was no longer mere unease. It was a herald of the danger lurking ever closer, a warning Emma could no longer afford to ignore. Jacob's laughter echoed lightly through the house as he played with Luna in the fading daylight, a stark contrast to the heavy tension weighing on Emma's shoulders. The boy's carefree joy, his boundless curiosity, reminded Emma of what was at stake. Yet even Jacob couldn't fully escape the shadow creeping over their lives. His wide eyes sometimes darted toward the windows, where the evening shadows lengthened and the whispers of the unknown gathered. Luna stayed close to him, protective and alert, her soft nudges reassuring the child while guarding against threats he couldn't yet understand. The innocent light Jacob carried into the darkened house was fragile, a beacon Emma was desperate to preserve. As Emma moved through the town's narrow streets, shadows lengthened with her every step. Unseen eyes followed her, furtive glances from behind curtains, silent watchers in parked cars. Faces once familiar now seemed etched with suspicion or veiled threat. A chill crept beneath her skin, each encounter tinged with the possibility of danger. Whispers trailed her in hushed tones, questions laced with doubt and thinly veiled warnings. The weight of isolation settled heavier with each passing day. Luna's protective growls accompanied her every return home, a fierce shield against the encroaching darkness. Emma's mind spiraled between fear and resolve. She knew that exposing the truth meant confronting enemies both visible and hidden. In the dim glow of a single lamp, Emma and her closest confidants gathered for a strategy meeting. Maps sprawled across the table, phones charged and ready, faces drawn with exhaustion yet burning with determination. Voices were hushed but urgent, plans sketched to confront the shadows threatening their community and family. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she laid bare her fears, hopes, and the moral complexities of their mission. The risks were profound. Exposing long-hidden sins could fracture lives, friendships, and trust. Yet silence was no longer an option. Luna lay nearby, alert even in rest, embodying the courage Emma sought to summon. The room buzzed with tension, a fragile alliance forged in the crucible of impending conflict. As night fell thick and velvet, Luna's watchful eyes never ceased scanning the darkness. Her muscles coiled in silent readiness, ears swiveling toward every subtle sound. The creak of a branch, the distant hum of a car, the whisper of footsteps on gravel. She paced the perimeter with quiet determination, a sentinel guarding the fragile safety of Emma and Jacob. Every growl and bark was deliberate, a coded language of warning and protection. Emma found solace in Luna's unwavering vigilance. The dog's instinct was the tether keeping them anchored amid growing threats. The bond between human and canine was a lifeline, a promise that no matter what came, they would face it together. In the quiet sanctuary of her bedroom, Emma stared into the mirror, searching for the strength reflected back at her. The weight of grief, uncertainty, and mounting danger pressed upon her chest like a storm. Yet beneath the fear, a fierce determination burned bright. She thought of Jacob's innocent smile, of Luna's steady presence, of the future they deserved. Memories of loss were tempered by the call to protect and fight. With a deep breath, Emma whispered to herself, "This ends now." The past would no longer hold them hostage. Her hands clenched into fists, resolve hardening like tempered steel. Luna's soft whine at the door was a reminder she was not alone in this. Together, they were ready to face the darkness. The town's reaction was a fractured mosaic of fear, loyalty, and suspicion. At the local diner, hushed conversations spilled into sharp glances. Friends turned cold shoulders, neighbors whispered in corners. The once tight-knit community showed cracks, revealing old rivalries and deep-seated fears. Emma felt the sting of isolation deepen, the burden of leadership heavier with each passing day. Yet among the doubt, pockets of unwavering support remained, a reminder that even fractured loyalty could forge unexpected alliances. Luna's presence was a quiet comfort amid the shifting tides, her calm a steadying force in a sea of uncertainty. The night air hung heavy and still, the world holding its breath as if anticipating the coming storm. Luna sat at the edge of the porch, every muscle taut, ears pricked toward the silence. The usual chorus of crickets was muted, even the wind seemed to pause in respect. Emma moved quietly inside, her heartbeat steady but loud in the stillness. Jacob slept soundly, unaware of the tension threading through the house. Outside, shadows shifted with a slow, deliberate menace. Luna's eyes glowed with fierce vigilance, a sentinel guarding the fragile peace. The calm was deceptive. Soon, everything would change. Gathered once more with her allies, Emma's unwavering courage shone like a beacon through the darkness. Her voice was firm, infused with the hard-earned wisdom of a woman who had faced loss and refused to be broken. She spoke not only of danger but of hope, hope born from love, loyalty, and the unyielding spirit of justice. Those who listened found their own fears tempered, their doubts pushed aside by Emma's steely resolve. Luna, ever at her side, embodied that same spirit, a living symbol of steadfast loyalty. Together, they inspired a community ready to reclaim its truth. In the quiet moments before dawn, Jacob stirred, unsettled by dreams and the weight of looming uncertainty. Luna was there, her warm body pressed close, a living anchor against the tides of fear. The dog's gentle nudge and steady gaze soothed the boy's trembling heart. Words were unnecessary, Luna's presence was enough. Emma watched from the doorway, gratitude and love swelling within her. In that silent exchange, trust blossomed. Trust not just in Luna's protection but in the promise of a brighter tomorrow. The bond between dog and child was a sanctuary, a refuge against the encroaching darkness. As dawn edged the horizon, Emma packed the last of the essentials, her hands steady despite the storm inside. Jacob gathered his small bag, Luna watching with keen eyes, sensing the gravity of what lay ahead. The farmhouse, once a place of quiet refuge, now thrummed with anticipation, a crucible where courage would be tested. Emma paused at the door, inhaling the crisp morning air, steeling herself for the unknown battles to come. Luna's steady stance beside her was a silent vow. No matter the darkness, they would face it as one. The journey was far from over, but their unity was unbreakable. The night hung heavy as Emma approached the weathered shed, the place where so many secrets had long been buried. A sudden shift in the shadows caught her eye. Someone was there, waiting. The figure stepped forward, face obscured by the brim of a worn hat, eyes sharp and cold. Tension rippled through the air like static electricity. Emma's heart pounded fiercely, every instinct screaming danger. "Why did you do it?" she demanded, voice trembling but resolute. The antagonist's response was chilling, filled with a cold calculation that sent a shiver down her spine. The truth, dark and tangled, spilled forth, lies, betrayals, and decades-old wounds reopening. Behind Emma, Luna's ears pinned back, low growl vibrating, ready to protect. The confrontation was no longer about past shadows. It was a fight for their future. Suddenly, the antagonist lunged, a flash of movement too fast for Emma to react. Luna sprang forward, fierce and unyielding, positioning herself between threat and family. Her growls deepened, teeth bared but controlled, a guardian's warning that echoed through the silent night. Emma's breath caught in her throat as Luna's protective stance held firm, shielding Jacob, who stood frozen behind his mother. The dog's eyes locked on the intruder, every muscle taut, courage radiating in waves. A struggle erupted, raw and desperate. Luna's bark pierced the dark, a call to arms and defiance. Despite the danger, Emma found strength in Luna's fearless loyalty, fighting back her own fear to stand beside her silent protector. The night air thrummed with tension. The battle for truth had begun. In the chaos of the moment, Emma's mind raced back to memories long suppressed, whispers of betrayal within her own family, the fractured trust of neighbors who'd turned blind eyes. The antagonist's words cut deep, unraveling the fragile threads of her past. Secrets once buried beneath layers of grief and denial now demanded reckoning. Tears welled as Emma faced the reality that the community she'd hoped to rebuild with was steeped in shadows and silence. Yet beneath the pain, a flicker of clarity emerged, a resolve to break the cycle, to claim justice not only for herself but for the lost voices silenced too long. Luna's steady presence grounded her, a reminder that even in darkness, loyalty and love endure. Amid the struggle, Luna's fierce defense came at a cost. A sudden, sharp blow caught her flank, and a low whimper escaped her throat. Emma's heart clenched as she saw the brave dog falter momentarily, then rise again, eyes blazing with unyielding spirit. The pain was undeniable, but so was Luna's determination. Her silent courage inspired Emma and Jacob, fueling their will to survive and overcome. With a final, commanding bark, Luna drove the antagonist back, buying the precious moments needed for Emma to call for help. As the sirens wailed in the distance, Luna collapsed, her breathing labored but her loyalty unbroken. The dog's sacrifice etched itself into Emma's soul, a testament to the price of protection and love. The night air erupted with the arrival of law enforcement, their flashlights piercing the darkness and voices cutting through the tension. The antagonist, overwhelmed and exposed, was taken into custody, their secrets laid bare before the community. Emma watched as justice, long delayed, finally found its way through the shadows. The weight that had pressed on her chest for months began to lift, replaced by cautious hope. Luna's injury was serious but not fatal, and the family's relief was tempered with gratitude for their guardian's bravery. The struggle was over, but the journey toward healing was just beginning. In the quiet aftermath, the truth forged a new path forward, a testament to resilience and the power of facing darkness head-on. As dawn crept over the horizon, Emma sat beside Luna, tears streaming freely as she gently stroked the dog's matted fur. The room was filled with quiet, punctuated only by Luna's labored breaths and the steady rhythm of hope. In this fragile moment, the unspoken bond between woman and dog spoke volumes, of sacrifice, loyalty, and unwavering love. Emma's sobs carried the weight of grief and relief, a cathartic release of months spent in fear. Luna's steady gaze met hers, a silent promise that they had survived together and would continue to do so. The first light of morning was not just a new day, it was a new beginning, through the pain and darkness, hope endured. News of the antagonist's capture and the revelations about the shed rippled through the community like wildfire. Conversations that once skirted the truth now confronted it head-on. Neighbors gathered, no longer shrouded in suspicion or fear, but united in shock and resolve. The silence that had suffocated the town for decades shattered, replaced by voices demanding justice and healing. Emma's courage and Luna's heroism became symbols of truth unmasked and darkness dispelled. The community, fractured but resilient, began to mend its wounds. The shed, once a symbol of fear, was reclaimed as a monument to survival and courage, a reminder that no secret could remain buried forever. Back home, Luna rested comfortably, the worst of her injuries tended to with tender care. Yet, even in recovery, her watchful eyes never ceased their vigil. She lay near the window, alert to every sound, every shadow, guarding the home she had fought so fiercely to protect. Her presence was a constant reassurance to Emma and Jacob, a living testament to resilience and steadfast love. The scars on Luna's body were badges of honor, silent reminders of battles fought and won. Healing had begun, not just of flesh, but of hearts and community. In the quiet moments, Luna's gentle breathing was the steady heartbeat of a family reborn. Trust is a fragile thing, easily broken, hard won. But when it's real, it's a force stronger than fear, louder than silence. Luna taught me that. In her eyes, I saw a courage I didn't know I had. In her loyalty, I found the strength to face the shadows of my past. We all carry scars, seen and unseen, but together, we can heal. This journey has been about more than uncovering secrets. It's been about reclaiming hope, rebuilding trust, and honoring the silent heroes who stand beside us when the world falls dark. The sun had fully risen, casting golden light across the now peaceful farmhouse. Emma, Jacob, and Luna stood together on the porch, shadows of the past retreating behind them. The battle they had faced had left its marks on their bodies, their hearts, and their spirits, but it had also forged an unbreakable bond. Emma looked down at Luna, her silent protector, her loyal friend, and felt a surge of gratitude and love. Jacob's laughter broke the morning silence, a sound of innocence preserved against the odds. The family had been forever changed, yes, but stronger, united, and ready to face whatever the future held. Their story was no longer one of fear and silence, but of resilience, love, and the enduring power of trust. Jacob tugged gently at Emma's sleeve, eyes wide and curious. "Mom, do you think Luna will always protect us?" he asked, voice soft but earnest. Emma smiled, kneeling to meet his gaze. "Yes, sweetheart. Luna will always be here. She's our guardian, our friend, and our family." Luna wagged her tail slowly, as if affirming the promise. The simplicity of the moment, the innocence of a child's trust, was a balm to Emma's soul. In that quiet exchange, hope blossomed, a seed of light growing strong in the fertile soil of love and loyalty. No matter the darkness they had faced, the future was theirs to shape, together. Word spread beyond the small town, stories of Luna's bravery weaving into local folklore. The German shepherd who had faced down darkness to protect her family became a symbol, a silent guardian watching over the community. Children whispered her name with reverence. Neighbors nodded with newfound respect. A small plaque was placed near the shed, honoring Luna's courage and the family's resilience. Emma often found herself pausing there, hand resting gently on the cool stone, a quiet smile touching her lips. Luna's quiet courage had transformed fear into strength, silence into story. And though she never sought the spotlight, her legacy would endure, a testament to the unspoken bond between human and animal and the power of love to conquer even the darkest shadows. The first light of dawn stretched softly over the town, painting the streets with hues of gentle gold. Slowly, the whispers of fear that had once divided neighbors began to dissolve, replaced by tentative conversations and glimmers of understanding. At the local cafe, familiar faces exchanged hesitant smiles and shared stories of pain and hope. Walls that once hid secrets now stood as bridges toward reconciliation. Emma observed these shifts quietly, heart swelling with cautious optimism. The town, bruised but unbroken, was learning to face its past and embrace a future where healing was possible. The collective breath of a community released, as if the very air had been waiting to clear. Back at the farmhouse, life settled into a fragile rhythm of renewal. Emma moved with purpose, slowly reclaiming spaces that grief had once overshadowed. Jacob's laughter returned, filling the rooms with light and reminding them both of joy's resilience. Luna, their steadfast guardian, remained ever vigilant but softened in her moments of quiet rest. The bond among them, human and animal, grew deeper, woven through acts of care, playful exchanges, and shared silence. Together, they rebuilt not just their home but their sense of belonging. Each sunrise brought the promise of new beginnings, a testament to strength found in love and loyalty. Emma tenderly tended to Luna's healing wounds, her fingers gentle over fur that had been battle-scarred but not broken. The local vet's care was meticulous, and neighbors brought meals and kind words, their gestures small but significant. Luna's bravery had become a story told in hushed reverence, a symbol of hope in the darkest times. Emma arranged for a small ceremony in Luna's honor, a way to publicly recognize the silent hero who had risked everything for her family. As Luna rested peacefully, her eyes brightened with quiet pride. She may not speak, but her actions echoed louder than words ever could. Late one evening, Emma sat alone on the porch, the cool night air wrapping around her like a comforting shawl. The stars scattered across the sky seemed to mirror the fragments of her own journey, broken moments stitched together by threads of courage and hope. She thought of her late husband, the weight of grief still lingering but no longer immobilizing. The mystery unearthed had forced her to confront not only external darkness but the shadows within. Yet through it all, Luna's unwavering loyalty and Jacob's innocence had been beacons, guiding her toward healing. Emma's heart whispered a quiet promise, to live with resilience, to protect what was sacred, and to never forget the lessons born from pain. Morning light filtered through the curtains as laughter echoed softly from the kitchen. Emma, Jacob, and Luna gathered around the breakfast table, a simple ritual made precious by the trials they had endured. Luna's tail wagged in gentle rhythm to the happiness that now filled the room, a living pulse of safety and love. Jacob's eyes sparkled as he told stories, his innocence a healing balm for Emma's weary soul. In these quiet moments, surrounded by warmth and familiar faces, fear felt distant and fragile. The past was still there, but so was the promise of peace. Together, they embraced the fragile beauty of everyday joy, a testament to survival and new beginnings. At a neighborhood gathering, voices mingled in apology and reconciliation. Former whispers of suspicion transformed into heartfelt admissions of fear and regret. Neighbors approached Emma, offering genuine apologies for the silence and doubt that had shrouded her family. Old wounds began to close as shared stories illuminated the pain and isolation they all had felt. Emma listened, forgiving but firm, knowing that trust was fragile yet worth rebuilding. The community's embrace was tentative but growing stronger, a collective step toward healing the fractures left behind. Luna sat quietly at Emma's side, the silent witness to a town's journey from suspicion to solidarity. In the sprawling backyard, Jacob and Luna played beneath the dappled sunlight filtering through the trees. Their laughter and barks mingled in a symphony of pure joy. Jacob tossed a well-worn ball, and Luna's agile form caught it midair, tail wagging fiercely in triumph. These moments were more than play, they were building blocks of trust and companionship. Jacob confided small secrets to Luna, who listened with tilted head and soft eyes, her presence a steady comfort. Together, they healed wounds invisible to others, forging a connection that transcended words. Luna became Jacob's protector, playmate, and confidant, a living symbol of unconditional love. Inspired by Luna's bravery and the power of their bond, Emma found new purpose beyond her home. She began organizing community events to raise awareness for animal rescue and the importance of recognizing the silent courage of dogs like Luna. Flyers were printed, meetings arranged, and conversations sparked. Emma's passion was infectious, transforming her grief into advocacy. Through these efforts, she hoped to protect not only animals but the people who loved them, those who needed a guardian, a friend, a silent hero. Luna, ever by her side, became the face of this mission, a reminder that loyalty and compassion could change lives, one story at a time. The old shed, once a source of fear and mystery, was carefully restored by community volunteers. Its weathered wood was patched, windows replaced, and a fresh coat of paint brightened its face. Inside, a small memorial was created, photos, letters, and symbols honoring those affected by the dark past and celebrating the resilience that had emerged. The shed became a gathering place for reflection, education, and hope, a beacon reminding all that even the darkest places could be transformed by light. Emma stood nearby, pride swelling in her chest as neighbors of all ages visited, their conversations filled with remembrance and renewal. The shadow of fear lifted, replaced by a symbol of courage and community. On a crisp autumn afternoon, the town gathered in the community park to honor Luna's courage. A simple ceremony was held beneath a canopy of golden leaves, where Emma spoke with heartfelt gratitude. Luna taught us what it means to be brave, to protect those we love without hesitation, she said, voice steady yet emotional. Neighbors applauded, some wiping away tears. A plaque bearing Luna's name was unveiled, a lasting tribute to the silent guardian who had changed their lives. Luna lay calmly at Emma's feet, tail wagging softly, her eyes reflecting the warmth and love surrounding her. The ceremony was more than an acknowledgement. It was a celebration of loyalty, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bond between human and dog. Courage isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's the quiet presence that stands firm when the world turns dark. Loyalty isn't measured in words but in actions. Silent, steadfast, unwavering. Luna showed me that love can be both gentle and fierce, a force that protects and heals. Our journey wasn't just about uncovering truth. It was about discovering the strength that lies within ourselves and the bonds we forge. In every shadow, there is light waiting to be found. And sometimes, that light comes on four paws, with eyes full of trust and a heart full of courage. As the sun set behind the hills, Emma, Jacob, and Luna sat together on the porch, their silhouettes bathed in the soft glow of twilight. The past, with its pain and secrets, was behind them now, a chapter closed but not forgotten. Ahead lay a horizon filled with possibility, hope, and the promise of new stories waiting to be written. Emma's hand rested gently on Luna's head, a silent thank you for the love and protection that had carried them through the darkest nights. Jacob's laughter echoed once more, a melody of innocence preserved. Together, they faced the future, stronger, united, and forever changed by the silent courage that had guided their way. As twilight deepened into night, Emma's voice softened with a quiet strength, speaking over scenes of Luna resting peacefully by the fireplace. Sometimes, the most powerful guardians speak without words, she began, her tone full of reverence and warmth. Luna has taught me that silence can be louder than a shout. It's in the steady watchfulness, the gentle nudge, the protective stance that shields without harm. Her gaze lingered on the German Shepherd's calm form, every breath a testament to unwavering loyalty. We often look for heroes in grand gestures, but the truest ones walk beside us quietly, hearts aligned, instincts sharp, ready to stand in the darkest moments. The camera captured Luna's steady eyes reflecting the flickering firelight, a silent promise of love that needs no voice to be heard. The screen faded to images of Luna and Emma through the seasons, morning walks, shared silences, soft touches. Emma's narration continued, "What we share with our dogs transcends words. It's an unspoken language of trust, understanding, and devotion. They read our fears before we voice them, sense our pain before tears fall. Luna became not just my protector but my mirror, reflecting strength I didn't know I had. The montage showed Luna resting her head gently on Emma's lap, Jacob's fingers weaving through her thick fur. In those moments of quiet connection, I realized how much we owe to these silent companions. Their courage is often hidden behind stillness, their love expressed in steadfast presence. The bond between human and animal was portrayed as a sanctuary, a refuge from the chaos of the world, a reminder that sometimes the greatest support comes without uttering a single word. A series of vignettes unfolded, Luna's vigilant guarding at night, the fierce growl that warded off danger, the gentle lick of reassurance to Jacob's cheek. Emma's voice narrated, Luna's journey has been one of unwavering loyalty, quiet sacrifice, and boundless courage. She faced shadows most wouldn't dare to challenge, standing between my family and threats unseen. Scenes shifted to community members sharing their own tales, neighbors recalling Luna's watchfulness, children recounting playful afternoons with their silent protector. Her bravery reminded us all that courage isn't just for the battlefield. It's in everyday acts of love and protection. The narrative highlighted how Luna's actions rippled beyond the family, inspiring a community once fractured by fear to come together in gratitude and respect. The dog's journey was celebrated not just as a tale of survival but as a legacy of hope and steadfast devotion. Emma's voice grew earnest, speaking directly to the audience as the scene showed viewers in quiet reflection. If there's one thing I've learned, it's to trust your instincts, especially when it comes to those who watch over you silently. Animals have a wisdom that often escapes us. They see what we miss, feel what we hide, and protect without hesitation. The visuals showed close-ups of Luna's attentive eyes, ears flicking to subtle sounds, her body poised yet calm. Honor the animals in your life by listening to them, respecting their signals, and recognizing the depth of their loyalty. The message was clear: true guardianship is a partnership, a dialogue beyond words. Emma's voice carried warmth and conviction, inviting viewers to deepen their connection with their own animal companions and appreciate the silent courage that walks beside them every day. The screen softened to scenes of dawn breaking over the farmhouse, birdsong weaving through crisp morning air. Emma's narration gently painted a picture of renewal. Healing doesn't come overnight. It is a slow unfolding, a tapestry woven with threads of hope, forgiveness, and love. Luna reminded me that even in the darkest places, there is light waiting to be found. The visuals showed Jacob running freely through the fields, Luna bounding joyfully at his heels. The heroes in our lives are often unseen, silent watchers, steady hearts, brave souls who choose to stand guard without fanfare. The narrative spoke to the universal truth of resilience and courage, the quiet power of loyalty and trust. As the sun rose higher, the imagery and voice merged into a hopeful crescendo, leaving viewers with a sense of peace and possibility. Emma's voice softened into an intimate plea. If Luna's story touched your heart, I encourage you to share it. Help spread the message of courage, love, and silent guardianship. Subscribe to this channel to join our journey of hope and healing. The screen displayed simple, heartfelt text urging viewers to support local animal rescues and advocate for those without a voice. Every animal deserves a chance to be seen, loved, and protected. Together, we can make a difference, one story, one rescue, one silent hero at a time. The call to action was both practical and heartfelt, encouraging community and engagement beyond the screen. Emma's final words echoed gently as Luna's image lingered on screen, a symbol of loyalty and the unbreakable bond between humans and their animals. The final scene settled on Luna lying curled by the hearth, her breathing slow and steady, the flickering fire casting soft shadows over her fur. Her eyes fluttered closed, a picture of serene contentment and trust. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying a sense of calm and renewal. The camera panned slowly away from the quiet farmhouse, over fields bathed in moonlight, to the vast sky dotted with stars. The last image was one of peace, a silent guardian finally at rest, her watchful heart forever imprinted on the lives she saved. The screen faded gently to black, leaving viewers with lingering warmth and a deep appreciation for the unseen heroes who walk beside us in silence and love.